Everyone, by the grace of God, I chose the missionary Luke. So some background about Luke. He was born in Antioch, Syria to a household of Greeks. So he was very well off, and it's assumed that he grew up in wealth and privilege, and he studied medicine. So he actually never met Jesus. Luke never met Jesus. So he was actually a little boy, maybe like 7 years old, around the time Jesus was crucified. So Luke probably heard of Jesus, but he never met Jesus. He worked as a family doctor before he had an encounter with the love of Jesus. After that, he met Paul, the apostle, and assisted him in his journey. And soon he found his own calling. So both the books, Luke and Acts, were written by Luke, and Luke chooses to focus on the fact that Jesus is God, and he focuses also on his divine nature, that Jesus is the Son of God, Savior, and Messiah. And all through Luke and Acts, you can see through the verses that he's led by God to portray like a divine picture of Jesus. So the differences are Luke, the book of Luke was written to Theophilus, and the purpose was to provide an orderly chronological account of the gospel. So Jesus' parables, miracles, birth, resurrection, so those things are found in the gospel. And some things such as Elizabeth and Zacharias and the birth of Jesus Christ are only found in the book of Luke. So Acts is for Theophilus. It's the sequel to Luke to tell of the aftermath and the Acts of the Apostles. So this is the early church. The main topics are persistence, church values, God's power, church missions, and struggles. Luke was always faithful and ready to help the church. He traveled with Paul to Jerusalem a few times. He had never met Jesus as a person, but collected stories from eyewitnesses and previous disciples. He was well off, showing that God can use anyone, and that education is important, but he is first. Much of Luke's life is not recorded, but he may have visited Corinth, Malta, Israel, and Palestine. So Luke didn't travel that much except to collect information from eyewitnesses, but it's pretty remarkable because he was led by the grace of God. Even though he had never met Jesus, he provided one of the most detailed accounts of God's story. Luke also, what God I think is showing us through his gospel is that sometimes we think of missionaries as they travel a lot, like we see Paul. And God is showing us that Luke, he's rather quiet. You don't see him describing much about himself. Like, not much of him is known just by reading the Bible. So Luke is a very humble man, and God also expects us to be humble. So I think some characteristics of Luke that God is blessed are that he's very quiet, but God is showing how God can work through even some situations that we might not expect. Please. Do you remember where Luke was born? Yeah. What two books did he write?
The Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts.
Who did he help a lot? This can be a missionary. Paul, yeah, Barnabas also. What countries may have Luke visited? Who were the two books that Luke wrote sent to?
Theophilus.
So that's all about Luke.